Today I'm going to talk to you guys about the 9 things to know before moving to Waldorf, Maryland. Hi, my name is Malcolm Lawson. I'm a local real estate agent, and let's get to it. And just so you know, you can find the full article I wrote for this video, along with additional resources and links over at my website, lawsongroupmd.com. So number 1 on the list is traffic. So Waldorf, Maryland is primarily a commuter city, right? A lot of people live there, but they commute into DC or into the DC area. So obviously there's going to be a lot of traffic early in the morning and kind of late in the evening. So anywhere between, I'd say, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock in the morning, expect a lot of northbound traffic coming out of Waldorf on Route 301. Anywhere between 4 o'clock and about 7 o'clock, you can expect to see a lot of backups coming into the city, coming southbound on 301. And it stinks sometimes, I'll fully admit that. Coming into Waldorf from DC at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening is a real pain in the neck. You can expect to sit in a lot of stop and go traffic. Alright, so let's switch things up and talk about a positive now. So in Waldorf, Maryland, there is plenty of things to do. Right? You can never say there's nothing to do in Waldorf. If you have kids, I recommend Sky Zone, which is an indoor trampoline park just south of Waldorf. You have Scary Strokes, which is an indoor miniature golf course with all these black lights and arcade machines. You have the St. Charles Town Center, which is a 2-story mall, and it's actually a pretty nice mall to go to. And we actually have 2 different movie theaters here in Waldorf. Now, one's technically in Brandywine, but it's close enough. If you're into guns, we have Fred's Outdoors, which has an indoor gun range. I also recommend Myrtle Groves, which is an outdoor gun range. It's actually an outdoor national park that has a gun range, and that's close enough to Waldorf. That's an easy enough drive there. We also have the Indian Head Rail Trail, which is close enough to Waldorf. That was an old railroad track that they paved over, and they turned into a very long paved running and biking trail. It's several miles, so if you're into walking, running, jogging, biking, that's a perfect place there. And Waldorf also has a lot of bars and restaurants available, right? Several of them have live bands that play pretty often. So there's definitely plenty of things to do on a weekend here in Waldorf. You can never say that there's nothing to do. So number 3, let's talk about the stores. So just like there's plenty of things to do, there's plenty of shopping to do here in Waldorf. Waldorf has all the big box stores that you expect, right? It's got a Lowe's, Home Depot, Office Depot, Best Buy. It has all the big brand stores that you want. We've got that here in Waldorf. We got a Walmart. And the nice thing is we have all the big box stores. We also have a lot of little stores that are still here in Waldorf, a lot of specialty stores in Waldorf. So there's plenty of shopping to do. It's one of the things I like most about Waldorf is if you need to go buy something, you can almost always find a store that has it. So number 4 is Waldorf is primarily focused around that Route 301. So there's pretty much just one way in and one way out of Waldorf. Now, if there's a bad traffic jam, you can kind of cut across the back roads, take 210, which will take you north through Fort Washington, and ultimately to the Beltway. But for the most part, there's just one way in and then one way out of Waldorf. And everything revolves around that 301. So all the major shops and stores I talked about, they're all right there on that 301. And as you kind of get further away, you get into the residential communities outside of 301. So this is actually a pretty good thing though, because it makes it very easy to get to any store that you want. All you have to do is to get to 301. Once you're on 301, it's easy enough, it's quick commute to get to any store that you really need. So number 5 is Waldorf has a very large military community. So with Andrews Air Force Base being just north of Waldorf and all the military assignments in DC, such as the Bolling Air Force Base, the Pentagon, the White House. There's a whole bunch of military assignments in DC, and a lot of those people end up moving to Waldorf and just kind of put up with that commute on 301 to 495. So Waldorf has a huge military community, a huge military presence here. Many people actually move here when they're in the military, they get out of the military, and then they stay here. All right, so number 6 is that Waldorf is close to the country. So Waldorf has all the amenities that you expect with a big city, but we are literally just a 10-minute drive and you are out in the country. So if you like just to get away from it all sometimes and go explore national parks and go to farmers markets and go antique shopping, all of that stuff you can do. It's just a 10-minute drive out of Waldorf and you're out in the country, which is pretty cool. And one of my favorite things to do is go to the Hughesville Barn, which is just south of Waldorf a bit. And it's an old tobacco barn that they've converted into kind of like a flea market where people rent out little booths and they sell a lot of antiques and knickknacks and everything. So if you're into antique shopping and exploring national parks, Waldorf is a great location for you. All right, so number 7 is Waldorf is going through a bit of a cultural shift currently. So Waldorf was originally established in the 1800s, and it was primarily like a farmer's market for all the farmers to gather around. Then in the 1950s, it went through a cultural shift, and they legalized gambling in Charles County, and Waldorf was actually known as Maryland's Little Vegas. It had a bunch of casinos in here, a bunch of gambling. They eventually outlawed gambling again, and we still have the remnants of a lot of that culture still here in Waldorf. A lot of these old buildings from the 50s and 60s, and they're slowly tearing these old buildings down and replacing them with new shopping centers and new homes. Just recently, they tore down the old Waldorf Hotel, and that was kind of an iconic casino here in the 1950s and 60s. Made it turn into a bit of an eyesore. It's probably a good thing that they tore it down. But that's pretty common here. They're tearing down a lot of these older buildings and replacing them and kind of revitalizing this area, which I think is a good thing. So number 8, let's talk about school zones. So full disclosure, I don't have any school-age kids right now. So everything I know about the school zones is just based on what I read on the internet. But if you do some research in the school zones here, you'll see a lot of 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. So if school zones are a top priority for you, I would encourage you to do your research and you have to look at the individual schools and individual school zones that you'd be in, and you can see what the ratings are online for those. Hey, before we get to number 9, I just want to remind you guys that I write articles for all my videos as well. So if you want to see the full article on 9 things to know before moving to Waldorf with additional links and resources, go over to my website, thelawsongroupmd.com, to find that. So number 9, let's talk about restaurants. So just like there's plenty of things to do in Waldorf, there's plenty of shopping to do in Waldorf, there's plenty of restaurants to eat at here in Waldorf, which is awesome. I would say you could probably go to a new restaurant every single weekend for a good 6 months before you ran out of restaurants to try in the Waldorf area, right? There's just that many good places to eat. So some of my favorite places down here is you've got the Silver Diner, you've got Chevy's, you got the All-American Steakhouse, you've got the New York Italian Deli, which is just north of Waldorf, but I swear I've had the best deli sandwich of my life there. Definitely go check out the New York Italian Deli. I also really like Bocelli's Pizza. They got delicious pizza here. And of course, Cheddar's. So Cheddar's, when you're coming into Waldorf, you'll see it on the left-hand side. And that place is always packed, right? If you can get a table there, I highly recommend you go check them out. They're pretty good. So that's it. That's the 9 things you should know before moving to Waldorf, Maryland. If you're thinking about making the move down here to Waldorf, Maryland, my team and I would love to help you. Feel free to reach out to me on my website, thelawsongroupmd.com.